There will come a day when your name is spoken in a room you're not in, a meeting, a conversation, a decision behind closed doors. And in that moment, your reputation, your character, your essence will either echo like thunder or vanish like smoke. That day is not marked on a calendar. It does not announce its arrival. It simply comes silently. And when it does, the life you've lived becomes the voice that speaks for you. The way you showed up, the promises you kept, the work you did when no one was watching. That becomes your voice. See, there's a kind of wealth deeper than money, a kind of influence greater than fame, a kind of power that doesn't come from speaking louder, but from living truer. It's the kind of power that moves rooms in your absence, shifts hearts without saying a word, because your life, your real life, is either your witness or your warning. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room, and that starts long before success ever knocks. It begins in the silence, in the discipline of early mornings, in the sweat of unseen efforts, in the resolve to do it right, even when no one's looking. You see, most people are busy decorating the outside, chasing applause, collecting likes, feeding the algorithm of attention. But those who live a life that echoes, they work on the inside. They build soul equity. They trade popularity for principle, convenience for conviction. And in doing so, they become undeniable. Because serial influence is not a product of charisma. It's the result of character. It's not what you say in the spotlight. It's what you do in the shadows. So ask yourself, what story does your life tell when your mouth is closed? When your resume is unread? When your title is stripped? When all that's left is your example, your standard, your truth? Do you move people closer to excellence or give them excuses to stay the same? Do your actions challenge mediocrity or endorse it? Does your presence demand integrity or dilute it? Because whether you like it or not, you're always teaching, you're always leading, you're always leaving a trail. And that trail, it either leads to greatness or regret, to inspiration or indifference. That's the kind of success no bank statement can measure. No award can quantify. It's invisible, but undeniable. Subtle, but seismic. And to build that kind of life, you need more than ambition. You need alignment. You need habits forged in the fire of clarity and purpose. So let's talk about mindset, because before your life ever speaks, your mind whispers. It tells you what's possible. It tells you what you're worth. It tells you whether you're a victim of the world or the author of your future. And most people, they've let other people write their script. They've outsourced their beliefs. They've downloaded limitations dressed up as logic. But not you. Not anymore. It's time to take back the pen. Time to edit the old story and write a new one. One where the struggle made you sharper, not smaller. Where the setback became the setup. Where the doubt became fuel. Because mindset isn't about being positive. It's about being powerful. It's the decision to meet resistance with resilience, to face fear with forward motion, to stop reacting to life and start creating it. And when you choose that kind of mindset, your life starts to move differently. You stop needing motivation and start becoming it. You stop begging for permission and start owning your presence. You stop chasing validation and start building value. And then belief steps in. Because mindset creates the conditions, but belief is the catalyst. Belief is the fire that says, I am worthy. I am capable. I am enough, not because the world said so, but because I decided so. You've got to believe in the value of your voice before the world hears it. You've got to believe in the weight of your work before it gets rewarded. You've got to believe in your potential, even when the evidence isn't obvious. That's the hard part of having faith before fruit. But that's what leaders do. That's what legacy is made of. And belief, it's not just a feeling, it's a muscle. You build it through repetition, through action, through showing up on the days when the doubt is louder than the dream. And the more you act in alignment with belief, the more you start to see it. Not just in yourself, but in others. And suddenly your presence starts to lift people, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you've become proof that it's possible. But belief without clarity is a wildfire without direction. So you've got to get clear. What are you here to do? Who are you here to serve? What problem are you here to solve? Because purpose is not found, it's built. Brick by brick, decision by decision, truth by truth. Clarity cuts through noise. Clarity quiets the chaos. Clarity says no when distractions scream yes. And once you're clear, vision emerges. Vision is not a daydream. It's not a Pinterest board of vague ambitions. Vision is a contract with your future. It's a covenant with your calling. It's the ability to see with the eyes of your soul, even when your circumstances are cloudy. The world will always offer you comfort in exchange for your calling. But vision doesn't negotiate. Vision doesn't compromise. Vision demands discipline. And discipline, that's the bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. Discipline is the decision to honor your future over your feelings, to choose progress over pleasure, to do what needs to be done again and again and again until excellence becomes your default. And here's the truth. Discipline isn't punishment. It's liberation. It frees you from chaos, from regret, from mediocrity dressed in convenience. Because every time you do what you said you would do, you cast a vote for the person you're becoming. You build a reputation with yourself. And when that reputation is rooted in integrity, in grit, in consistency, your life starts to speak without you saying a word. It says, I am reliable. I am relentless. I am rooted. And that's when action becomes your identity. Not just what you do, but who you are. You stop needing external reminders. You become the reminder. You become the example. You become the evidence that, yes, it's possible. And the world, it listens. Not because you demand it, but because you've earned it. Earned through effort. Earned through late nights and early mornings. Earned through setbacks turned into comebacks. And when you start to live like that, when your life becomes a reflection of values, not just vibes, when your name becomes synonymous with excellence, then even your silence speaks. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room, because one day the rooms will be many. The doors will open. The tables will turn. And your life, your standard, your story will walk in before you do. And when it walks in, let it carry the scent of dignity. Let it shake the walls with truth. Let it whisper to the timid, rise higher. Let it remind the arrogant, there's always another level. Let it silence the doubters without uttering a single word. That's what greatness does. It doesn't shout. It echoes. It lives in the memory of how you made people feel, how you handled pressure, how you honored your word when it was hard. That's the legacy you're crafting moment by moment, habit by habit. And yes, habits are the builders of destiny. Forget luck. Forget hype. It's the small, deliberate acts, repeated daily, that make your life unstoppable. Gratitude. That's one of the most misunderstood habits of power. See, gratitude is not just saying thank you when things go right. Gratitude is the warrior's perspective. It's looking into the eye of chaos and saying, thank you for the fire. I needed it to forge my edge. It's waking up tired, facing adversity, and still declaring, I'm grateful because I'm still in the game. When you train your mind to find the seed of strength in every storm, you become bulletproof. Not because the storm won't come, but because you've already claimed the meaning it will serve. That's emotional alchemy, turning pain into progress, setback into setup, loss into leverage. And if gratitude is your root, adaptability is your wings, because the path will never unfold how you imagine. Plans will break. People will leave. The script will change. But adaptability, that's the habit of evolution. It's staying committed to your mission, but flexible in your method. It's learning to dance with disruption instead of resisting it, to flow like water strong, but formless, to pivot without losing purpose. The rigid break, the flexible rise, and in that rising, you'll find the heartbeat of resilience, that sacred space where your soul refuses to quit, where every bruise becomes a badge, where every no sharpens your yes. Resilience is the art of falling forward, of turning wounds into wisdom, of showing up one more time, then life knocks you down. People admire strength, but they follow resilience. They follow those who've bled with grace, who failed with courage, who've walked through fire and came out golden, not bitter. Because resilience isn't just enduring, it's enduring with your spirit intact. And as you walk this path-building mindset, belief, clarity, discipline, gratitude, adaptability, resilience, you'll come to the most humbling habit of all, learning, the hunger to grow, to remain a student, even when you become a teacher, to ask better questions, even when you're giving great answers, to never let achievement blind you to improvement. Because the moment you think you've arrived is the moment you stop arriving. Success is not a destination. It's a commitment to sharpen your tools, refine your vision, and evolve your thinking. Growth is not something you graduate from, it's something you breathe. And when learning becomes a lifestyle, wisdom becomes your companion. And wisdom, that's the currency of kings. It's the lens that sees beyond appearances. It's the compass that points to truth in a world seduced by trends. And once you have wisdom real, earned wisdom, you lead different. You live different. You stop chasing attention and start creating impact. You stop shouting to be seen and start working to be felt. And when your life is felt, when people can sense your standard just by how you move, that's when your life speaks. Not just in rooms you're absent from, but in generations that follow you. Because true influence transcends time. It lives in the culture you shaped, the example you set, the quiet strength you carried when it counted most. So now, I ask you, what are you building? What are you becoming? What kind of echo will your life leave behind? Don't aim for applause. Aim for alignment. Don't live for attention. Live for intention. Don't build a life that needs to explain, it's build a life that explains others. Let your work speak. Let your service speak. Let your discipline speak. Let your character thunder in rooms you've never stepped into. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room, because one day it'll be the only thing that does. And when that day comes, when your name is brought up in the boardroom, the courtroom, the locker room, or the living room, you won't have to wonder what's being said. You'll already know, because you've lived in such a way that your integrity left a fragrance. Your discipline left a blueprint. Your courage left a trail of possibility for others to follow. There is a difference between a person who shows up to impress and a person who shows up to impact. One fades the moment they leave. The other remains long after they're gone. This world doesn't need more noise. It doesn't need more performances. It needs people of weight, people of grit, people of honor, people who choose substance over image and excellence over ease. Because image is what people see, but substance is what people feel. And only one of them travels through closed doors. There's a kind of magnetism that can't be faked. It's born from the accumulation of 1,000 small decisions done right. Waking up when it's easier to sleep in. Choosing kindness when anger would be justified. Following through when quitting would be excused. Refusing to betray your standards for the sake of approval. These things, they seem invisible, insignificant, but they are the bricks of legacy. And when stacked day after day, they create a fortress no storm can shake. You see, life is always watching. And even when no one applauds you, life is keeping score. The results will reveal the roots. The harvest will expose the habits. That's why shortcuts are a lie. They look fast, but cost everything. They promise gain, but deliver emptiness. You can't microwave greatness. You have to cook it slow in the oven of patience, persistence, and pain. Because pain is not your enemy, it's your trainer. It strengthens what comfort softens. It sharpens what routine dulls. And the ones who rise are not those who avoid pain, they are those who assign it purpose. They say, this too will serve me. They say, this will not break, might will build me. They say, this suffering will not be wasted. Because when you live with that kind of intention, everything becomes fuel. Every loss becomes data. Every failure becomes feedback. Every betrayal becomes a mirror revealing what needs to be healed, what must be upgraded, what can no longer be tolerated. This is how you build a voice that speaks without sound. This is how you build presence without performance. This is how you become the kind of person that others whisper about, not in gossip, but in reverence. They'll say, she never needed to boast. Her results did the talking. They'll say, he walked in with humility, but left with the room changed. They'll say, that's someone I want to become like. But don't live for their words. Live for your soul. Live for the alignment that lets you sleep at night. Live for the mission that wakes you up with fire in your chest. Because when you do, you no longer need to chase success. Success comes looking for you, not because you demanded it, but because you became worthy of it. So, stay the course. Keep building. Keep rising. Keep sharpening. Let others cut corners while you build foundations. Let others chase trends while you establish truth. Let others play for attention while you move in intention. Because there will be a momenta room, a stage, a table where your name will surface, and you won't be there to campaign for yourself. Your life will do the speaking, and the room will listen. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room. Because when you live that way, you'll never need to worry about who's watching. Your life will do what your words never could. And what a life that is. A life so intentional, it leaves fingerprints on every room it enters. A life so grounded in principle that even the winds of chaos can't uproot it. A life so consistent in its excellence, so unwavering in its pursuit of what is right, that even time begins to respect it. The clock ticks for everyone. But legacy bends time. It stretches far beyond the present. It leaks into futures you will never see. It becomes the seed of someone else's awakening. That's the reward of living well. Not trophies, not titles, not temporary praise, but transformation. A life that transforms others simply by existing. So many are chasing visibility, but you chase invincibility, not in the body, but in the reputation. Not through armor, but through alignment. Because when your actions align with your deepest truth, you become untouchable. You become the one others count on. You become the one others reference. You become the one others remember not for what you had, but for who you were. This is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about being fully alive in your values, fully committed to your vision, fully surrendered to the responsibility that comes with greatness. Because greatness is not found in grand gestures. It's found in quiet consistency, in how you do the small things when no one's around, in how you speak about people who can't do anything for you, in how you treat the moments the world deems ordinary. You see, when your integrity is so intact that no one questions your intentions, when your discipline is so steady that no one doubts your delivery, when your name becomes a standard, not a suggestion, that's when you know you've built something that speaks without speaking. You become the lighthouse. You don't chase ships. You simply shine. And those who need what you carry will find their way by your light. But don't be fooled. This path is not easy. You will be misunderstood. You will be mocked. You will be questioned. But remember this, the deeper your roots, the stronger your silence. Let others talk. Let others post. Let others perform. You plant. You build. You become. And while they're chasing noise, you're becoming a signal of excellence, a signal of resilience, a signal of purpose. Because here's the truth, the world won't tell you. You don't need 1 million followers to be powerful. You need one life lived with such clarity, such courage, such conviction that it alters every life it touches. The world is changed not by crowds, but by examples. So become the example. Be the one who arrives early, stays late, does the right thing when the wrong thing is easier, takes responsibility when others pass blame, moves with honor when others move with ego. Be the one whose word is contract. Be the one who doesn't flinch in adversity. Be the one who chooses principle over popularity. That's the kind of person whose name opens doors, whose story is told with admiration, whose legacy travels further than their voice ever could. Because when you build your life on truth, when you lead with soul and execute with strategy, when your motives are clean and your mission is clear, you don't have to shout. You don't have to chase. You don't have to beg. You become the magnet. You become the gravity. You become the one who moves Pioplanat with persuasion, but with presence. So show up every day, not to impress, but to become the kind of human whose name carries weight, not because of status, but because of substance. And when you live like that, you become undeniable, unshakable, unforgettable. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room, because the day will come when your voice is absent, but your choices will speak loud. Your habits will leave clues. Your presence will still be felt. And those who knew you, even briefly, will say, he lived full. She walked with purpose. They didn't just pass through life. They left it better. Let your life thunder without noise. Let your legacy echo in rooms your feet never entered. Because when all is said and done, when the noise dies down and the spotlight fades, only one question remains. Did you matter? Not in the trending sense, not in the viral, temporary 15 seconds of fame sense, but in the soul-deep, life-altering, legacy-leaving sense. Did your life matter? Did your actions move people closer to courage? Did your values remain steady when everything else shook? Did your journey give others permission to rise? Did you stand for something or fall for everything? We live in a time where attention is currency. But you must decide, will you spend your life chasing attention or building respect? Because attention is rented. Respect is owned. Attention is given when you entertain. Respect is earned when you endure. The real currency of life is not fame. It's impact. It's the unseen ripple effect of your consistency, the silent testimony of your character, the integrity no one witnessed, but everyone felt. And that kind of impact only comes from one place, alignment. When your thoughts, your words, and your actions are all telling the same story. When what you believe is reflected in what you build. When what you preach is matched by what you practice. Live so deeply in alignment that your energy walks into the room before you do. That your absence speaks even louder than your presence ever could. That people say, I don't know what it is, but when they were around, I felt more possible. That's the power of a life lived right. It leaves people better, not impressed, but transformed. And it starts with the decision to stop performing, to stop pretending, to stop waiting for permission, and to start building quietly, consistently, without the need for validation. Let others waste their time proving. You spend yours improving. Let others beg to be seen. You become the kind of person no one can ignore. Because true power is quiet. It's not showy. It's not loud. It's the confidence that doesn't need to convince. It's the clarity that doesn't compete. Live with so much purpose that it's painful to settle. With so much vision that distraction feels like betrayal. With so much integrity that anything less feels foreign. And understand this. The world does not give lasting power to the most talented. It gives it to the most consistent, the most disciplined, the most obsessed with mastery. Because the room you want to enter, the opportunity you want to receive, the legacy you want to leave, they are all locked behind a door labeled, prove it through your habits. So make your habits holy. Make your standards sacred. Make your word unbreakable. Because one day, they'll become the only thing left to speak for you. And on that day, when your name is mentioned, there won't be a debate. There won't be confusion. There won't be uncertainty. Only clarity. Yes, I know that name. They were the real deal. Yes, I felt something shift when they walked into a room. Yes, they showed me what was possible. And that is everything. Because the ultimate aim is not applause. It's impact. The goal is not to be remembered, but to be felt. To live so deliberately, so ferociously aligned with truth that your life becomes a mirror reflecting what others forgot they could be. So rise today, not for recognition, but for responsibility. The responsibility to carry your name well, to hold your calling high, to protect your gift from compromise. And remember, every action is a vote for your legacy. Every word is a seed in the soil of memory. Every moment is a brushstroke on the canvas of your life. Paint something eternal. Build something sacred. Live something worthy. And when you're gone, let the silence roar. Let your absence speak louder than your presence ever did. Let your life thunder across time, across generations, across hearts. A quiet, unstoppable declaration that you showed up. You stood tall. You lived true. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room. Because yes, there's still more to be said. There's still more ground to claim. Still more fire to feed. Still more in you than you've dared to believe. Don't you see? This isn't just about reputation. This isn't about image or legacy or influence alone. This is about honoring the breath in your lungs, about honoring the one life you've been given, about refusing to sleepwalk through your destiny. Because the truth is, you are being watched, not by critics, not by crowds, but by the quiet ones, the ones who look up to you but never say it, the ones who model your moves, the ones who are learning how to fight because they watched you refuse to fold. They are your shadow audience, and they matter. So every time you show up with excellence, you're telling them, this is how it's done. Every time you stand in integrity, you're declaring, this is what it looks like. Every time you keep going, when it would be easier to stop, you're saying, this is who we are. You are building more than a life. You are building a standard. And that standard will echo long after you're gone. It will echo in the habits of your children. It will echo in the decisions of your team. It will echo in the posture of people who never met you, but felt your wake. And no, it won't always be fair. You'll be held to a higher bar. You'll be asked to carry more. You'll be misunderstood by those who only understand convenience. But that is the price of leadership. That is the toll of greatness. That is the burden of the chosen. And if you're reading this, if something deep in your spirit is still nodding, still burning, still whispering, keep going, then you are the chosen. Not chosen by accident, not chosen by bloodline, but chosen by decision. You chose to rise. You chose to become. You chose to live as if your life meant something. And it does. It does. But don't expect applause for it. Don't expect a parade. Don't expect the world to understand the price you pay in silence. Because those who walk the path of real impact, they rarely get standing ovations, but they get something better. They get peace. They get alignment. They get the quiet satisfaction of knowing they gave it all. They get to leave this world empty because they poured it all out. And when they're gone, their life speaks. It speaks in the companies they built, in the families they healed, in the movements they sparked, in the souls they touched often without ever meeting them. That is the highest form of success. To live in such a way that your story outlives your breath. To become not just an example, but a foundation. Not just a voice, but a vision. Not just a memory, but a message. So rise. Rise with urgency. Rise with fire. Rise like your name depends on it, because it does. Not the name people call you. The name your life will write across history. You have something sacred inside you. Protect it. Sharpen it. Honor it. And live so fiercely, so authentically, so immovably, that when the rooms whisper your name, your life stands tall and answers. I was here. I built. I bled. I gave it all. And I made it count. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room. Because what you're building isn't just a reputation. It's a presence. A presence that lives on in the decisions others make when you're not there to guide them. A presence that endures in the way they carry themselves because they once stood near your fire. You want to change the world? Then light yourself on fire with truth and let the heat radiate. Let your passion set standards, not trends. Let your convictions speak louder than your marketing. Let your footsteps do the talking. In this world of filters and shortcuts, stand tall in the raw, unfiltered grind. Because what's rare becomes valuable. And authenticity? Authenticity is becoming a priceless gem. But be warned, when you choose to live this way, you will lose people. You'll lose those who only knew the older version of you. You'll lose those who were attracted to your potential but allergic to your power. You'll lose the ones who benefited from your smallness because your rising exposed their complacency. That's the cost of growth. That's the price of truth. But what you gain cannot be measured. You gain the power of walking into any room and not shrinking. You gain the authority that comes from self-mastery. You gain the legacy that whispers through generations. And no trend, no critic, no failure can take that from you. Because the people who matter won't remember what you wore. They'll remember what you stood for. They won't remember how loud you were. They'll remember how steady you were. They won't remember the titles you had. They'll remember the weight of your presence. So speak less. Live more. Let your values be louder than your voice. Let your discipline be louder than your declarations. Because the most powerful lives are not those that command attention, they command respect. And that respect is built moment by moment behind the scenes when no one's clapping, no one's watching, no one's offering validation. That's where legends are born. In the invisible, in the uncomfortable, in the unseen hours where most people give up, but you press on. That's where your life finds its voice. Not in the spotlight, but in the silence. Not in the applause, but in the assignment. Not in the approval, but in the alignment. Because you were not born to be liked. You were born to be legendary. And legends are not remembered for being popular. They're remembered for being principled. They're remembered because when the world was drifting, they held the line. They stood their ground. They lived in such a way that history could not ignore them. And you, yes, you have that same fire within, but it's not enough to feel it. You must feed it with action, with intention, with courage, with character, every single day, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when you wonder if it matters. Because it does. It matters to the person you'll become. It matters to the lives you'll change. It matters to the story you'll leave behind. So ask yourself again, when the room mentions your name, what will be said? When opportunity knocks, will your preparation answer? When the doors open and your feet have yet to enter, will your life already be speaking? Build that life. Live that story. Be that person. The kind that shifts the energy when they arrive. The kind that is missed when they leave. The kind whose presence lingers long after their voice goes quiet. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room, because the world doesn't need another echo. It needs a voice, a real one forged in fire, one that rose not from convenience, but from conviction. And you, right now, you are standing at the edge of that decision. To remain as you've been, or to step into what you were born to become. Understand this. Everything great begins in obscurity. Every mountain was once a shadow. Every giant was once unseen. And every life that speaks powerfully, silently, eternally was once a life that whispered, I will not quit. You don't need to be known by the world to make an impact. You need to be known by yourself. You need to trust your own reflection. You need to stand in the mirror eye to eye with your potential and declare, this life will count. Because one day, your children will ask who you were. Your name will be passed from mouth to mouth. And they won't ask how much you made. They'll ask how much you gave. They won't ask what you drove. They'll ask what drove you. They won't ask who clapped for you. They'll ask who you lifted. Let your life answer those questions. Let your days be evidence. Let your struggle become scripture, something sacred, something people turn to in times of doubt. Let your legacy not just be remembered, let it be lived through others. That kind of life, it doesn't begin with a spotlight. It begins in silence, in choices no one celebrates, in promises no one hears, in the lonely grind that becomes holy when you decide it's not optional. And those choices, they stack, they build, they become character, they become confidence, they become the steel in your spine when the storm comes and everyone else bends. Because storms will come, betrayals will happen, critics will bark. But if your life has been built on truth, if you've laid brick upon brick in discipline and honor, then no storm will move you. Let others seek shelter. You become the shelter. You become the place others run to. You become the strength they need, the clarity they crave, the example they thought didn't exist. And how do you do that? You stop outsourcing your power. You stop waiting for someone else to validate your greatness. You stop negotiating your standards with mediocrity. And you decide right now that from this day forward, everything changes. You rise early. You stay late. You keep your word. You build in silence. You move in purpose. You speak with action. And slowly, then suddenly, people will take notice. Not because you asked them to, but because your life demanded it. They'll say, there's something about the way they carry themselves. There's something about how they move, how they serve, how they show up. There's something about them that just feels true. That something is everything. That something is the difference between forgotten and forever, between passing through the world and leaving a mark on it. So no more shrinking, no more settling, no more waiting. Now is the time. Now is the fire. Now is the moment you stop hoping for change and start becoming the change. And when the rooms begin to whisper your name, when the doors you didn't even knock on start to open, it won't be luck. It won't be magic. It won't be chance. It will be alignment. It will be integrity. It will be the compounded echo of every quiet moment you chose excellence when no one was watching. That is the sound of a life well lived. That is the thunder of a soul on fire. That is the roar of legacy moving through time. Live that life. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room. Because if you still have breath, you still have work. You still have mountains to climb, not to impress anyone, but to show yourself how high your soul was always meant to soar. You were not born for the sidelines. You were not made to watch others write history while you silence your gifts in the name of modesty or fear. You are here to leave a mark, not a maybe. To live as proof, not potential. Every day, you wake up with the divine opportunity to either rise or retreat, to either echo eternity with your choices or vanish into convenience. But you already know this. The easy life costs more in the end. It charges you your self-respect. It robs you of your fire. It drains your voice until you no longer recognize the sound of your own truth. So take the harder path, not because it's painful, but because it's real, because it purifies you, because it strips away the shallow and leaves only the sacred. You don't become the kind of person who moves rooms by playing small. You don't develop the gravity of greatness by keeping your light dim. You don't earn the right to be remembered by blending in with the forgettable. You earn it in the moments of decisive discomfort, when you say yes to growth and no to safety, when you choose courage over compromise, when you refuse to lower your standards to meet the room and instead raise the room to meet your standard. Live like your life is the answer to someone else's prayer, because it is. Somewhere out there is a version of you 5 years ago, begging for evidence that rising is possible. Be that evidence. Be the reason someone else doesn't quit. Be the quiet force that walks into chaos and breathes calm into it. Be the standard by which others begin to measure what's possible. And here's the paradox. The more you focus on building that kind of life, the less you'll need recognition, because you'll be too full, too focused, too grounded to crave the applause of the unqualified. You'll stop chasing rooms, and rooms will start chasing you. Because when your life speaks loud enough, opportunity stops asking for introductions. Doors swing open because your work preceded you, because your name no longer needs a resume. It is the resume. But that only happens if you choose daily to be loyal to the highest version of yourself. Loyal in the dark, loyal in the dull, loyal in the waiting, because the real test isn't how you perform when you're seen. It's how you behave when no one's clapping, when no one's cheering, when no one's watching. That's where identity is forged. That's where power is born. That's where you become unstoppable. You see, the world doesn't just need more vision. It needs more vessels. People willing to carry something sacred. People who don't just talk legacy, they live it. So let every move you make whisper, I was here on purpose. Let every task, no matter how small, declare, I was built for excellence. Let every challenge you face testify, this soul will not bend. And long after your voice has quieted, long after your hands have finished their work, may your life continue the conversation. Let your name be a weight that grounds. Let your presence be a compass that guides. Let your absence still move mountains. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room, because what you do now echoes into forever. Every step you take with integrity becomes part of the foundation someone else will one day stand on. Every time you rise instead of run, you pave the path. Every moment you choose discipline over distraction, purpose over pleasure, calling over comfort, you aren't just building your life, you're shaping the future. Don't you understand? The choices you make ripple into lives you may never meet. Your excellence isn't just about you. Your courage creates clearance for others. Your vision breaks ceilings for those born beneath them. So don't just live for the moment. Live for the legacy. Let others waste their time trying to go viral. You go eternal. Let them have 15 minutes of fame. You're building something for generations. Because the truth is, when your life becomes a lighthouse, you don't chase ships. You don't beg for attention. You don't fight for position. You just shine. And the ones who need your light, they find you. The ones who've been lost in their own fog, they navigate by your glow. But hear this, your shine must be sustained, not just sparked, not just posted, sustained through fatigue, through frustration, through failure. Because greatness isn't built in the moments when it's easy. It's revealed in the moments when quitting is the more comfortable option. It's forged in the fire of repetition. 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 Not glamorous. Not sexy. Not headline worthy. But it's where kings are crowned. Where warriors are formed. Where legacies are carved. Not in marble, but in the mundane. So get up again. Write the thing again. Serve again. Refuse to complain again. Lead with humility again. Show up with integrity again. That's how your life becomes undeniable. That's how your presence gains authority. That's how your absence keeps speaking. Not because you forced it, but because you earned it. So let them forget the trends. Let them chase applause. Let them ride the highs of fleeting hype. You stay rooted. You stay dangerous. You stay building. Because one day, someone will ask, how did they do it? How did they stay the course? How did they live with such fire and never burn out? And the answer will not be found in some post or press release. It will be found in your rhythm, in the cadence of your commitment, in the melody of your mindset, in the harmony between who you said you were and how you actually lived. That's music that never dies. That's a message without words. That's the language of a life well lived. So step into the calling. Step into the cost. Step into the sacred fire of becoming. And when your name is spoken in rooms you'll never enter, may it still inspire. May it still uplift. May it still roar with the power of your purpose. Because that's the only way to live. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room. Because a name is more than just letters. It is the echo of your decisions. It is the weight of your values. It is the residue you leave behind when your body has moved on, but your influence remains in the bones of those who knew you and in the fire of those who never did. And one day, someone will whisper your name, not with familiarity, but with reverence, not because of your resume, but because of your resilience, not because you were the loudest voice in the room, but because you were the clearest, not because you chased validation, but because you carried vision. Live so that your name becomes a statement, a standard, a line in the sand. Let it mean something. Let your name mean unshakable. Let it mean relentless. Let it mean true to purpose, even when the path grew quiet. Let it mean did what needed to be done, even when no one else did. And you won't need a biography. Your life will be the book, written in how you walked, how you loved, how you fought with grace, how you stood when others knelt to fear, how you kept showing up, not because it was easy, but because it was right. And when you live like that, your reward is not just influence, it's immortality. Not in name, but in effect. Not in memory, but in momentum. Because a life lived in alignment creates a ripple across time. And that ripple turns into waves that move people not toward you, but toward their own greatness. That is the life worth living. That is the life that speaks. And you don't need to wait for it. You can build it now, right now, with your next decision, with your next discipline, with your next refusal to settle, because no one is coming to crown you. You have to build the throne with your habits, with your hunger, with your hope that refuses to die. The throne is built in the mundane. And when it's done, when you've laid each brick with precision and fire, you don't need to sit on it to prove it's yours. You just need to keep building and let others rise because of the structure your life created. So build something sacred, something weighty, something eternal. And remember, you don't rise by being perfect. You rise by being pure, by being present, by being relentlessly consistent in who you are, what you believe, and how you show up, especially when no one is clapping. That's how you earn the room, long before you walk into it. That's how you live a life that speaks when you're not in the room. Because if there's still breath in your lungs, there's still a message being written, and not with your words, with your will. The world doesn't need more opinions. It needs more examples. It needs more men and women who lead themselves first, so completely, so deliberately, that their very presence demands elevation. And not the kind of elevation that puts you above others, but the kind that lifts others simply because you exist. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to force to be felt. You just need to become a force of nature. Quiet, unshakable, deeply rooted in your purpose. You become the standard, the benchmark, the mirror that reflects what's possible. And when people step into your orbit, they straighten their posture. They speak with more care. They think twice before settling. Not because you asked them to, but because your life left them no other option. That's what happens when your example speaks louder than your advice. That's what happens when you live truth so unapologetically, it gives others permission to stop hiding. But understand, you cannot live that kind of life by accident. You must choose it over and over again. On the days when you feel like a lion, and on the days when you feel like a ghost, on the days when everything flows, and especially on the days when everything fights against you, because it's in the resistance that greatness is refined. It's in the pressure that identity is proven. It's in the silence that legacy begins to sing. So let them underestimate you. Let them forget your name. Let them walk out of the room when you're not there. It won't matter, because you're not building a name to be mentioned. You're building a name to be respected. You're not building a story to be told. You're building a story that tells them who they can become. That's power. That's influence. That's real success. And when your life is lived at that level, you stop needing to be everywhere, because your energy stretches further than your presence, because the echo of your actions does more than your explanation ever could. Live like your absence still teaches. Live like your footsteps leave blueprints. Live like your decisions design futures, because one day they will. And on that day, when your name is brought up in a room you'll never enter, your legacy will rise from the silence and speak on your behalf. Let it speak with excellence. Let it speak with grace. Let it speak with power. Let it speak the truth of a life lived all in. Live a life that speaks, not just when you walk into the room, but when you're gone and the room still listens. And then, one day, not far from now, when no one's asking what you do, when no one knows where you are, when the room is full but you are not in it, your life will rise and speak in your place, not with noise, but with weight, not with titles, but with truth. They won't remember every word you said, but they will remember how they felt when you walked in. They'll remember the height you demanded from yourself, and from them, they'll remember that in a world of excuses, you chose to remain unshaken. You were the one who kept your word when everyone else made peace with compromise. You were the one who chose integrity over being liked. You were the one who lived fully, even when the world told you to live safely. And then your name will echo, not because you mastered visibility, but because you left a path not paved in applause, but in footprints of perseverance, sacrifice, and truth. Someone will rise because you once stood. Someone won't quit because you kept going. Someone will believe in themselves because you believed in something no one else could see. And when that name, your name is spoken, not in gossip, but in gratitude, not in noise, but in reverence, the room will pause, because your life, your real life, the one built in silence, forged in pain, proven in fire, that life will still be speaking. No spotlight can amplify it. No failure can cancel it. No absence can silence it. Because you didn't just live. You built. You gave. You became. And that is everything. So let this be the vow you carry forward. To rise when it's hard. To stay when it's quiet. To give when it hurts. To become when it's easier to perform. To live not just for today's praise, but for tomorrow's legacy. Because the rooms will open. The whispers will start. The world will remember. And when your name is mentioned, let your life thunder in your place. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room. So if money is the shadow, then who are you really? Are you the echo of someone else's fear? Or are you the architect of something greater than wealth, a life that radiates value? Because make no mistake, you don't attract money with talk. You attract it with transformation. And not the kind of transformation that looks good on camera. The kind that happens in the dark, in the early mornings, in the lonely nights, in the quiet decisions no one sees but everything feels. The shadow grows when you grow, not when you post, not when you wish, not when you visualize without action, but when you become someone who can hold weight emotionally, intellectually, financially, spiritually. And let's be honest, if $1 million landed in your lap tomorrow, would you know what to do with it? Would your habits protect it? Would your vision expand it? Would your character deserve it? Or would it expose the cracks in your foundation? Because money magnifies the person holding it. It doesn't change you, it reveals you. So if you don't like what you see in your financial life, don't just change your income. Change your internal framework, your mindset, your self-worth, your strategy, your standards. And the first shift must happen here. Mindset. Because a scarcity mind produces a scarcity life. Scarcity says, there's never enough. Abundance says, there's always more when I become more. Scarcity blames. Abundance builds. Scarcity complains. Abundance creates. Scarcity sees problems. Abundance sees systems to be built, solutions to be monetized, lives to be changed. You don't rise financially until you rise mentally. The most powerful question you can ask yourself daily is, who am I becoming right now in this very decision? Not what am I doing, not how much am I making, but who am I becoming? Because money flows to identity. The person who sees themselves as worthy builds worth. The person who sees themselves as a leader leads. The person who sees themselves as a problem solver finds opportunity. Your income rarely exceeds your identity. So if you want to earn more, become more valuable to more people more often, in more meaningful ways, that's not just mindset, that's belief. You must believe you were made to move mountains. You must believe your time is expensive, because it is. You must believe that the marketplace needs your solution, and that it is your obligation to refine it until it's so good they can't ignore it. But belief alone is never enough. Belief without clarity is a loaded weapon in a dark room. So you must get clear, razor sharp on what value actually means in this economy. What do people need? What do they hate doing? What do they pay to avoid? What do they desperately want, but can't figure out? That's where your shadow begins. Not in what you like, but in what the world needs from someone like you, delivered in a way only you can. And when you combine belief with clarity, you become dangerous. Your energy shifts. You're not guessing anymore. You're building on purpose. And that clarity turns into vision, not vague ideas, not one-day goals, but compelling pictures of the future you are moving towards so powerfully that the present has no choice but to catch up. You begin to act like the version of you who's already there. You start making decisions as if it's already done. And people around you feel it. Because nothing is more magnetic than a human being with direction. Not talent, not good looks, not charm, direction, conviction, certainty. And that certainty is what allows you to access the next layer purpose. Because this isn't just about cash. It's about contribution. It's about legacy. It's about creating something so rooted in your soul, so powerful in its execution, that money becomes a side effect of how deeply you've served the world. People can feel purpose. It's a vibration. And when you combine purpose with skill, with precision, with fire, you become undeniable. So stop chasing money. Start chasing mastery. Mastery in your words. Mastery in your work. Mastery in your daily discipline. Because every day you choose mastery, you expand the shadow. And discipline is the key. Discipline is doing it when you don't feel like it. It's not glamorous. It's not easy. It's not always fun. But discipline is the contract you sign with your future self saying, I will not let you down. You want more income? Start tracking your inputs. Start tracking your execution rate. Start looking at how many reps you actually put in on the things that matter. Not the busy work, not the dopamine chasing, the value creation work, the uncomfortable calls, the deep thinking, the skill development, the boring work that builds the beautiful life. Because success is built in the hours no one sees, in the reps no one celebrates, in the silence where most people quit and you keep building. Discipline is the currency of every champion you admire. And your discipline becomes visible in your results. And when discipline becomes your rhythm, action becomes your language. Because knowledge without action is poverty. Belief without movement is fantasy. Plans without execution are just pretty lies we tell ourselves. Action is where the real money lives. Not in theories, not in dreams, not in 20 open tabs of productivity hacks. Money rewards the doers, the ones who step into the arena, the ones who ship the product, make the call, pitch the deal, build the team, press record, raise their hand, open the door, burn the boat. The world doesn't need more dreamers. It needs more builders. Because builders own the future. Builders become the standard. And builders don't wait for approval. They build with bloody knuckles and bruised egos and relentless hearts. That's how the shadow grows from action, not analysis. So ask yourself, are you consuming or creating? Are you watching others win? Or are you in the ring, swinging, missing, learning, evolving? Because every step you take in aligned action stretches your capacity. You become more useful, more skilled, more experienced, more valuable. And the money follows. Not always fast, not always loud, but always eventually. Because the universe pays those who move. And once you've moved long enough, you start to feel something deeper awaken in you. Gratitude. Gratitude not just for the results, but for the process itself. You begin to see that all the pressure, the sleepless nights, the early mornings, the rejections, the failures, they weren't punishment. They were preparation. They shaped you. They stripped away weakness. They sharpened your instincts. They taught you patience. They built the kind of resilience that can hold wealth without crumbling under its weight. And that gratitude, it's not soft. It's not fluffy. It's fierce. It's a fire in your chest that says, thank you for the struggle. Thank you for the resistance. Thank you for the hard. Because the hard is what made me ready. Gratitude turns pressure into purpose. It takes struggle and baptizes it into strength. And from that place of strength, you begin to evolve into something the world is starving for. Adaptable. You stop fearing change because you've outgrown the need for certainty. You've built your identity on something deeper than trends and tactics. You are fluid. You are focused. You are able to adjust your strategy without losing your soul. And that is value in its purest form, because the marketplace will always shift, but the adaptable rise. The ones who cling collapse. The ones who evolve expand. You don't resist change. You ride it. You dance with it. You leverage it. Because money moves to those who can solve today's problems, not yesterday's. And that's where most people lose. They fall in love with how it used to work while the world moves on. But not you. You've trained for this. You expect the storm, and you build your house with deeper roots, not taller walls. So while others are shaken, you stand. And when you stand long enough, when you act long enough, when you evolve long enough, you become resilient, not just mentally, not just emotionally, but financially. You stop panicking at downturns. You stop freezing when plans fall apart. You stop begging for backup because you've become the backup. You don't hope to recover. You expect to rise because you've seen what you're made of now. You've seen what you can take, what you can bounce back from, what you can build from nothing. And that kind of resilience, it multiplies your value faster than any certification, strategy, or shortcut ever could. Because everyone wants someone who's consistent when things go wrong. Everyone pays top dollar for the person who stays calm in chaos, who makes decisions under pressure, who keeps their word when it's costly. That's value. That's money in motion. That's the kind of shadow that never stops following you because you earned it in the trenches. And as your resilience sharpens, as your actions compound, as your adaptability anchors you deeper, you cross a threshold. You stop working for money and start attracting it, not by magic, not by luck, but by principle, by becoming the kind of person money trusts, the kind of person the marketplace remembers, the kind of person people want to follow, buy from, partner with, build with. Because now you are no longer operating from pressure. You're operating from power. Power that came from pain. Power that came from practice. Power that came from doing the boring work, the scary work, the lonely work, until it became your nature. Now, your habits move like clockwork. Your words hit with weight. Your presence shifts energy. Your decisions move markets. Even if it's just the market of your own life. You have become the kind of person whose internal world is so fortified that nothing outside can shake it. And that's wealth. Not the money in the account, but the calm in your chest. Not the house you bought, but the man or woman you became to earn it. That's why we say, money is the shadow, not the source, not the identity, not the goal. It is the natural consequence of alignment. Alignment between your values and your habits, your thoughts and your actions, your words and your results. And when you live in that alignment, money shows up as a confirmation, not a craving. It becomes proof that your impact is real, that your growth is visible, that your service matters. So how do you build this alignment? You learn. You study the game. You become obsessed not with getting ahead of others, but with getting ahead of who you were yesterday. You read, you listen, you mentor, you reflect, and most importantly, you apply. You implement what you learn so relentlessly that your life becomes the evidence. Because information is not power. Applied information is, and every time you apply, you expand. You stretch your mind. You sharpen your execution. You deepen your value until one day you look back and realize you no longer fear money. You no longer chase money. You no longer shrink when others talk about wealth because you understand it now. It's not mystery. It's not myth. It's mechanics. It's cause and effect. It's value and exchange. It's energy and flow. And you become someone who moves in that flow, not from desperation, but from dominion. You lead your life. You lead your time. You lead your energy. And because of that, money follows. Because you've built yourself into someone the world can't ignore. So what now? Now, you multiply You take the mindset, the belief, the clarity, the discipline, the resilience, and you begin to scale your value. You scale it through systems, through leverage, through impact. You teach, you mentor, you build structures that make money move without your presence. Because wealth is not about how hard you work. It's about how well you've built. It's about who and what keeps growing, even when you're asleep, even when you're resting, even when you're creating from peace instead of panic. That's when you step into your final evolution. Freedom. Not just the freedom to buy more things, but the freedom to be more of who you are. To do work that sets your soul on fire. To give from overflow, not obligation. To speak with clarity instead of filters. To build with boldness instead of fear, because you've done it the right way. You didn't fake the shadow. You didn't hack it. You earned it by becoming so grounded, so useful, so true to your principles, that the shadow simply showed up. Bigger than before, longer than before, following you wherever you walk, because now the light inside you is that strong. So now I ask you, will you chase the shadow, or will you become the kind of person who walks so tall, so real, so disciplined that the shadow has no choice but to grow? You know the answer, because you've already started. Now finish the job, become more, and let the money reflect what you already know. You've become someone the world pays attention to. You've become someone the world rewards. You've become someone who doesn't just earn money. You earn trust. You earn influence. You earn legacy, because you finally understand money is just the shadow of who you've become.